Welcome back to my channel. So I have come up with a new topic for you, that is ultra processed food and cancer risk. So let me give you more details about this today. So what exactly is ultra processed food and how the ultra processed food intake can lead to cancer risk in people. So we all require food, we know that, but the thing is that when the food undergoes a lot of processing, there's a chance of addition of a lot of chemicals, preservatives, etc. And the interaction of these preservatives and other chemicals added to the food on a long run in people can lead to complications. So if you're trying to process the food from the natural state to different states, that can lead to sometimes a lot of complications, and it will also lead to other complications like health related, like heart health can deteriorate. You can have other complications. So in this way it can lead to problems. And according to few statistics, so Americans, they consume 50% of their daily calories, what they consume comes from these kind of ultra processed food. So this is definitely going to create a problem, because these ultra processed food consumption on long run are even linked to obesity issues. So when you talk about chips, you know that you start eating it, you cannot control, you keep on eating and eating. So this will definitely increase the calories that you're taking. Not only chips, even your sodas, cookies, so those kind of foods which are more and more processed. So according to World Health Organization, so they classify these kind of food as processed meat especially as group 1 carcinogens. So they are the ones which can cause cancer in humans. So this is just to show you some data regarding the studies that they have done. So if you try to compare your ultra processed food with unprocessed food. So what is unprocessed food is that you're consuming the food as it is. So naturally you might get a mango, you consume the mango as it is, that is unprocessed. But if you're making a juice out of it, adding preservatives for it and then selling it, that comes under the category of processed food. So in this way, various stages are there, and imagine you're doing some chocolates, candies from this mango, then that comes under ultra processed category. So there is a classification of this processing, and more the processing you do, the chances of having chemicals in that and other things in that increases, which can lead to complications on a long run. So this lines here, you can just check, this is a red line indicates unprocessed and blue line indicates ultra processed food. So when you take this on a long run, this is just to show you a study done based on the diet for a period of 2 weeks. So you can see when you're consuming the food which is ultra processed, your body weight changes will be much higher. So they have done some studies like this, and they have seen how the weight of the person is increasing within 14 days by giving this comparison between him consuming processed food and unprocessed food. So your weight is going to increase, so definitely this might further lead to obesity issues. Apart from that, your energy intake also you can just compare. When you're comparing with ultra processed food with unprocessed food, the energy intake is going to be much higher. So in this way, there are few problems related to these kind of ultra processed food. If you are consuming it on a rarely basis, it will not create much problems, but there are people who completely are dependent on these kind of ultra processed diet. For them, this definitely might lead to complications. So as I told you, if you're trying to process the food from naturally existing ones to higher levels, then that can come under this category. So they can be unprocessed, as you get naturally, minimally processed, highly processed and ultra processed. So this is the 4 categorizations that we have: group 1, group 2, group 3 and group 4. So unprocessed will come under the category of group 1. Processed, slightly processed, like if you're trying to extract honey from honeycomb, that comes under group 2. Processed foods will come under group 3, and ultra processed food will come under group 4, like your candy bars, hot dogs. So those are few examples for group 4 category. So this group 4 is creating more of complications. So in general, if I want to tell you, like more processing you do for any kind of food, definitely it might look nice, but it will create a lot of problems on a long run if you're taking this food on a daily basis, or maybe too much of these kind of foods can create problems. Like problems, it might be cancer, as I told you. Apart from that, it can create other problems like obesity. It might lead to diabetes kind of situations. Other metabolic diseases also, like cancer, can happen. So just to give you a difference between the processed meat and red meat. So when I talk about that group 4, which I was talking, the processed meat, some examples for them are ham, bacon, salami, sausages. So if you see in foreign countries, these are widely used. They on a daily basis, they might be using these kind of materials. And here when they try to preserve these kind of sausages or other things, definitely they would have added a lot of preservatives. And these preservatives are definitely increasing the shelf life of these products. But on a long run, they interact with the amines in our body, and when these preservatives like nitrates are added and they interact with amines in our body, they produce something called as nitrosamines, which are cancer causing agents. So directly these are not causing cancer, but because of the interaction of these nitrites, preservatives that are added in the body with amines, it can form these compounds which are causing cancer. So that is what I want to make you aware of. Apart from that, we have other red meat products like beef, pork, lamb. So these are few examples for red meat. So there is a difference between processed meat and red meat. So more the ultra process you do, definitely the risk of diseases is going to increase. And one more thing is that it might strip most of the basic nutrients which are there in the food because of the processing. And to get those nutrients back, they might add some extra things to that, which is called as fortification. So this can lead to a lot of calorie intake, and it might lead to addiction, because of which we might end up with obesity. So apart from this, there are certain food products which are high in glycemic content. So this glycemic content, if it is very high, what happens is we start digesting this food very fast in our body, which can lead to more calorie intake, which might lead to obesity issues. So there are also some reports which tells that high glycemic food intake for long can even lead to endometrial cancer. They have done some research on that. So in this way, this can create cancer causing agents also, and can create problems on a long run. So apart from that, as I spoke about the nitrites and nitrates which are added as preservatives, there are reports which tells that the nitrosamines which are formed can lead to cancer. So that is because of the interaction, as I told you. So in this way, there are a lot of studies which are happening, and if we are aware about this, I think it's better to understand these concepts. So why does this red meat or processed meat causes these issues? So one is about the preservatives, as I spoke about. So when you try to preserve it, you add some compounds, they interact with something in your body which can create some other compounds which can lead to problems. So basically we add nitrites kind of preservatives just to give flavor, to avoid spoilage. So there are some advantages because of which we are adding it, so that we can increase the shelf life of these products. But on a long run, they are creating problems. Apart from that, there's a red pigment called as heme, which gives color to meat. And now they are adding some additional pigments also to give that good red color, so that people think that it is fresh and they try to consume it. But that compounds that they're adding to make it look fresh can create problems. So apart from that, when you are cooking meat at very high temperatures, like when you're doing grilling, barbecuing, these kind of things, there's a chance that this organic matter which is there in this food can oxidize, and when they are oxidizing too much and they are depositing on the surface of the meat, they can produce some compounds like heterocyclic amines, polycyclic amines, and there are a lot of reports which shows that these kind of amines are cancer causing agents. So if you are consuming on a rarely basis a grilled material, then it may not create problems, but there are people who are consuming this on a daily basis, so these can accumulate in our body, so that creates problems. So when these accumulate in your body, there's no mechanism to remove it out from your body. So there it can create problems, and it can lead to mutations which can lead to cancer. So coming to the classification, like just to show you the processed meat, I showed you some examples of that. So these on the long run can create problems, and they are already classified as class 1 carcinogens. So you can see here group 1. So group 1 means it is more carcinogenic. Compared to that, you can see red meat. So these are also group 2A carcinogens. So these are slightly lesser potential. They are having less potential to cause cancer. But there also you can see pork, beef and lamb. Because if you're trying to preserve this so that you can use it for long, they add preservatives like nitrites, nitrates, as I told you. And that reacts with amines in the body to produce nitrosamines. So there it can lead to cancer. But if you're trying to consume it fresh, then it may not create problems. But you can see that this red meat, what I'm talking about, pork, beef, lamb, this does not include chicken and fish. So I already spoke about the smoked meat, which can create problems. So here I told you that once these organic matter are burnt at very high temperature, the PCAs which are formed, that is polycyclic amines, they deposit on the surface of this meat, and once you're consuming it, you're taking this PCA in your body, and this accumulation of PCA in our body can create problems. So apart from that, if you're trying to reuse the oil again and again, that also can lead to cancer risks. So we have cells in our body, we all know that. So the normal cells, okay, something like this. I'm just showing you a normal cell. So we have the repair mechanism in our body. So when the cell is normal, there is something called as reactive oxygen species which are formed in our body. And in the normal cell, what happens is this ROS production and degradation, there is a balance. So if there is a proper balance, the cell will act normal. It will not have any issues. But what happens is when there is some issues because of these kind of ultra processed food intake or something like that, your ROS generation can become much higher. So what happens if this production becomes higher but your cell doesn't have the capacity to degrade it at that level? This will create problems. So this will create more of ROS in our body, and once the ROS is more, it can even lead to DNA damage. And we already know there are a lot of reports which tells that once there is DNA damage, they can create a lot of mutations, and it can even lead to cancer or tumors. So this is just to show you a pictorial representation of ROS leading to DNA damage, which can lead to tumors or cancers. So it's better to reduce your intake of ultra processed food in your diet. So you should check the label, food label properly. So this is just to show you a food label. The nutritional facts of the foods will be mentioned in the food labels. So you can check on that. You can see the contents of it, and based on that you can decide what kind of food to take and what not to take. So check the labels, and it's always better to take from the local stores than such kind of ultra processed things. So it is better to go for fresh materials, like if you're having seasons of fruits, you consume it like that only, instead of making a juice of it and trying to consume it, because you know when you do a juice, you would be adding so much of sugar which can lead to again obesity issues or any kind of issues like that. Apart from that, you can consume it fresh, which is good enough. So it's better to start cooking more meals at home than depending on these kind of fast food. For taste wise, it might be good for 1 or 2 times, yes, but not daily. On a daily basis, definitely if you try to consume this kind of food, it can create a lot of issues in you, and that is why maybe the cancer cases and other things are increasing now because of these issues. So these are the foods that you need to avoid. So rarely you can have it, but please see to it that you're not having this on a regular basis. And coming to food that you can include in your diet, so these are the major ones which you can include in your diet, because these foods are very much rich in antioxidants. So antioxidants are those materials which has the potential to reduce or nullify the effect of ROS. So I told you how ROS production, if it is more, it can create complications. So if you are having some food which are having the capability to break down or reduce this ROS, definitely it will have the potential to prevent cancer. So these are some foods which will be very useful, which is rich in antioxidants, like tomatoes, citrus fruits, garlic. So in this way, there are a lot of foods available which are rich in antioxidants. So it's better to consume these kind of foods. So coming to the takeaway messages, we have seen how too much of processing of food can lead to complications, and basically we have seen how group 4 is creating a lot of complications. So how you can try to change slowly from these kind of ultra processed food to the ones which are not very much processed. So naturally taking of these will be definitely helpful, and it's better to check the nutritional label, as I told you. So you can keep a check on how much fat, sugars and salts you're taking in, because we have seen that it can be linked to obesity and other issues like that. So in this way, it's better to try to avoid ultra processed food as much as possible, and try to use fresh meat such as chicken and fish instead of going for processed meat like salami or sausages, so that you can save yourself from this cancer issues. So stay vigilant, stay safe. So thank you for watching. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel, and please share this video with maximum people so that anybody who is interested in this topic, it might be useful for them. Thank you.